I used to believe Christmas was the one night my family pretended to love me. But standing outside my father's office 5 days before Christmas, clutching a box of handmade gifts I'd spent 4 months creating, I heard my name spoken with such venom it froze my blood. Oliver is a disgrace to this family. This year we make him face the truth publicly. My father's voice was calm, almost surgical. My mother's laugh cut through the silence like glass. My brothers chimed in, detailing every humiliating word they'd used to destroy me in front of 50 relatives. I don't remember running. I don't remember how I ended up on that highway. Hands trembling on the wheel. Vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. That night, when my phone rang and my mother's furious voice demanded to know where I was, I stared into the darkness and whispered 6 words that changed my entire life. Did you enjoy my Christmas gift? And that's when everything I thought I knew about family, success, and my own worth shattered and rebuilt itself into something they never saw coming. Growing up as a Whitmore in Greenwich, Connecticut meant understanding one fundamental rule: excellence wasn't optional. It was the baseline for earning your right to exist at the dinner table. My family didn't just have wealth. They weaponized it, turned it into a measuring stick for human value, and I spent 29 years failing every single measurement they invented. My father, Jonathan Whitmore, built an investment empire by reading people's weaknesses and exploiting them without hesitation. My mother, Catherine, curated our family's image like a museum exhibit, pristine, controlled, devoid of anything messy or real. My older brothers, Marcus and David, were carbon copies of our father, sharp-suited corporate predators who spoke in quarterly earnings and stock portfolios. Then there was me, Oliver, the youngest son who walked away from a 6-figure position at the family firm to start a custom furniture workshop in Brooklyn. In their world, I wasn't pursuing passion. I was committing financial suicide wrapped in delusion. Every year, the Whitmore Christmas celebration transformed our estate into something out of Architectural Digest. 12-foot Fraser fir trees imported from North Carolina, hand-blown glass ornaments from Germany, a dining table that seated 60 people beneath crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's houses. And every year I showed up hoping this would be the Christmas they'd finally see me as something other than their greatest disappointment. This year felt different because I'd actually succeeded in ways I thought might matter to them. My furniture business had grown beyond my wildest expectations. I had corporate clients, a feature in Dwell magazine, a 6-month waiting list for custom pieces. I'd spent 4 months handcrafting personalized gifts for each family member, pieces made from reclaimed wood with hidden engravings of memories I thought only we shared. I arrived early on December 20th to help with preparations, trying once again to prove I belonged in a family that had never made space for me. Rosa, our housekeeper who'd worked for my family since I was 7, opened the door with the kind of smile that reminded me not everyone in that house saw me as worthless. "Mr. Oliver, it's wonderful to see you," she said, squeezing my shoulder gently, the first genuine warmth I'd felt since pulling through the gates. Inside, the house smelled like imported pine and cinnamon, manufactured comfort masking something colder underneath. I found my mother and Marcus in the kitchen, hovering over color-coded spreadsheets that scheduled every minute of the upcoming Christmas Eve dinner like a military operation. "Mom, I'm here," I said, setting down my box of gifts carefully. She glanced up for exactly 2 seconds. "Good, don't touch the decorations. The event coordinator will be back in an hour." Forced myself to smile through the familiar sting. I brought gifts this year. I made something for everyone. David looked up from his laptop, one eyebrow raised in that condescending way he'd perfected in business school. "More wood projects, Oliver? How quaint." The way he said the word quaint made it sound like a diagnosis. My mother waved her hand dismissively. "We're busy finalizing seating arrangements. Maybe later, maybe later." The phrase that had defined my entire relationship with them. I carried my box down the hallway toward my childhood bedroom, only to find the door slightly ajar and voices drifting from inside. Confused, I pushed it open and felt my stomach drop. Every single thing I'd left in that room, photos from college, my first woodworking tools, sketchbooks filled with furniture designs, childhood trophies, everything was stuffed haphazardly into cardboard boxes labeled "Donate" and "Storage." My vintage posters were gone. My bookshelf was empty. A stranger's suitcase sat where my desk used to be. "Mom?" I called out, heart hammering against my ribs. "Why is my room completely packed up?" Before she could answer, I heard my name spoken sharply from down the hall. My father's study. The door was cracked open just enough. That single moment of curiosity, that decision to move closer and listen, destroyed and saved my life. Simultaneously, I reached the study door just as my father's voice sliced through the silence with the precision of a scalpel. Oliver needs to understand his place in this family, and public humiliation is the only language left. My breath caught in my throat. I pressed myself against the wall, every muscle frozen, terrified even my heartbeat would give me away. Marcus spoke next, his voice carrying that same smug confidence he used in boardrooms. He'll panic, Dad, he always does. But honestly, embarrassment might be the wake-up call he needs. Embarrassment. Wake-up call. The words hit me like physical blows. Through the crack in the door, I could see them gathered around my father's mahogany desk like generals planning a war. My father, both brothers, my mother, all perfectly composed, discussing my destruction like a quarterly review. My father continued, his tone almost casual. After dinner service, I'll stand and address everyone. I'll express our concern about Oliver's choices, his refusal to accept reality, his stubborn insistence on this carpentry hobby. My mother sighed dramatically. His little furniture business is embarrassing. He makes what, $40,000 a year? It's humiliating for us to explain to our peers. David's voice cut in, sharp and clinical. I pulled the numbers. Average salary for skilled craftsmen in his area is $38,000. I made comparison charts showing what he could earn in an entry-level position at our firm versus what he's actually making. My throat burned. They'd prepared data. They'd made charts about my failure. Marcus added, I'll project everything on the screen during dessert. When he sees his income compared to ours in front of 50 relatives, he won't have anywhere to hide. A presentation. They were going to humiliate me with a PowerPoint presentation. My father actually chuckled. Once he's forced to admit this furniture fantasy has failed, we'll offer him a position. Junior analyst. Something manageable where we can keep an eye on him. My mother's voice turned sharp. And we should tell him about the room tonight. We need the space for Catherine's sister. He can't keep treating this house like storage for his failed dreams. My stomach twisted violently. They'd already cleared my room. They hadn't even waited. David added, better to remove his things during the dinner. He'll be too distracted to notice. The staff boxing, everything up. Then my mother said, something that would echo in my mind for months. His furniture business is like those macaroni crafts children make in elementary school. Adorable initially, but pathetic to cling to as an adult. They laughed. All of them. Even Marcus, who used to help me build birdhouses in the garage when we were kids. My vision blurred. I blinked hard, forcing myself to stay silent, to hear every word of truth they'd hidden behind polished smiles and holiday cards. My father concluded, this Christmas Oliver learns who he really is. A Whitmore who got lost. We're bringing him home. Something inside me whispered back, you're wrong. This Christmas I learn who you really are. I stepped away from that door feeling like my entire foundation had cracked open, revealing nothing but hollow ground beneath my feet. For 29 years I'd believed their criticism came from love, from concern, from wanting better for me. In 30 seconds I understood the truth. They didn't want better for me. They wanted me to disappear into the mold they'd created, or stop existing altogether. I don't remember leaving the house. One moment I was outside the study, trembling, and the next I was in my car, pulling out of the driveway too fast. The mansions. Christmas lights blurring into streaks of gold and white in my rearview mirror. My hands shook so violently I could barely grip the steering wheel. The cold truth crashed over me in waves. They weren't trying to help me. They were planning to break me. I drove without direction, taking exits randomly, until I found myself at a rest stop somewhere on I-95, surrounded by semi-trucks and strangers in a darkness that felt safer than anything inside that house. I parked, killed the engine, and sat in absolute silence. Then it hit, not tears, something worse. A hollow, crushing weight that made me fold over the steering wheel, gasping for air that wouldn't fill my lungs. How could they? I whispered into the empty car, my voice cracking on the words. My phone buzzed. Mom calling. I stared at her name on the screen, her contact photo showing that practiced smile she wore for charity galas. I couldn't answer. I could barely breathe. After the 5th missed call, I scrolled through my contacts with shaking hands and found Jake, my business partner and the closest thing I had to a brother who Actually gave a damn, he answered. On the first ring.
Oliver? Man, you okay?
You sound wrong, I tried to speak. Nothing came out except a choked sound I didn't recognize as my own voice. Hey, breathe. Where are you? Jake's voice shifted instantly to that calm, focused tone he used when things fell apart. Rest stop, I managed. I-95, I just left. I heard them, Jake. I heard everything. Tell me. So I did. Every word. Every chart. Every insult. Every plan to destroy me in front of my entire extended family. By the time I finished, Jake was silent for a long moment before responding with barely controlled anger. Those people are monsters. You understand that, right? Actual monsters. What if they're right? The words escaped before I could stop them. What if I'm just pretending? Playing at success? Jake's response came fast and fierce. Pretending? Oliver, you turned down 3 wholesale contracts last month because you were at capacity. You have people waiting 6 months for your work. You were featured in a national magazine. That's not pretending. That's succeeding in spite of them. His words cut through the fog just enough. Oliver, listen to me carefully. You're not the failure. They are. And they're terrified you'll realize it. I let out a shaky breath, gripping my phone like a lifeline. I don't know what to do, Jake. You're coming to the shop, he said firmly. Not to work. Just to be somewhere that's yours. Somewhere they don't control. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. Okay. Good, start the car. I'm not hanging up until you're moving, so I did. I restarted the engine, pulled back onto the highway, and followed Jake's voice back toward Brooklyn. Back toward the life I'd built with my own hands. The life my family called failure, but felt more real than anything inside that mansion ever had. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the moment I stopped, begging for a family and started building my own. When I finally pulled up to the workshop in Brooklyn, it was nearly midnight, but the lights were on. Jake stood outside holding 2 cups of coffee, his breath visible in the freezing air. The moment I stepped out of the car, he pulled me into a hug, the kind that doesn't ask questions, just holds on until the shaking stops. Come on, he said quietly, leading me inside. The workshop smelled like sawdust and wood stain and honest work. My workbench sat exactly where I'd left it, covered in half-finished projects and tools worn smooth from use. Nothing here judged me. Nothing here demanded I become something else. Jake handed me a coffee and we sat in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable quiet that only exists between people who don't need words to understand. Finally he spoke. You know what your family doesn't get? They measure success in dollars and status. But success is also freedom. It's doing work that matters to you. It's building something with your own hands and watching people's faces light up when they see it. I stared at the grain patterns in the wood on my bench. They think I'm a failure. They're terrified you're not. Jake corrected. Think about it. You left their world, their control, their approval, and you're still standing, still creating, still succeeding on your own terms. That terrifies people who measure worth by obedience. I hadn't thought about it that way. My phone buzzed again. Another call from my mother. I turned it face down. I'm not going to Christmas, I said quietly, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. Jake nodded. Good. So what are you going to do instead? I pulled out my notebook, the one I used for furniture sketches, and flipped to a blank page. For the first time in hours, my hand was steady. I started writing, not furniture designs, a plan for my freedom. At the top of the page, I wrote what I will do next. Then, one by one, I listed every decision I was taking back from them. 1. I will not attend Christmas. No explanation, no apology, no permission asked. They would feel my absence the way I'd felt their cruelty. 2. I will deliver the gifts I made, not as a peace offering, but as proof that their cruelty didn't turn me cruel. 3. I will set legal boundaries around my belongings. If they wanted to treat my childhood room like a storage unit, I'd treat this like the legal matter it was. 4. I will host my own Christmas with people who actually see me as human. 5. I will expand my business with the clients already waiting. Success would be my only response. 6. I will decide which family members, if any, earn a place in my life going forward. Respect, honesty, equality, or nothing at all. When I finished, I stared at the page. Not overwhelmed, not afraid, just clear. Jake read over my shoulder and smiled. That's power right there. Now let's talk about number 4. Where are you spending Christmas? I shrugged. Honestly, hadn't thought that far. My family's cabin, upstate, me, Sarah, a couple friends from the woodworking guild. Low-key, real food, no performance required. He paused. You're coming. Not a request. I felt something crack open in my chest, something warm. Yeah, okay, yeah. The next morning, I called an attorney, Rebecca Mills, who specialized in personal property and family law. She listened to my situation without interruption, then spoke with calm precision. Write a certified letter immediately. List every item you left in that room. State clearly you did not abandon these belongings and you intend to retrieve them. Time-stamped legal proof. It puts pressure on them and protects you. I wrote the letter that afternoon, listing everything. My grandfather's woodworking tools he'd left me before he died, childhood photos, my college portfolio, first sketches, every piece of my history they decided was inconvenient. I printed it, signed it, sealed it, and walked it to the post office myself. The moment I handed it to the clerk, I realized something profound. This was my first act of self-defense against the people who raised me. That afternoon, I drafted another message, an email to the clients who'd been waiting for custom pieces. Instead of my usual apologetic tone about timelines, I wrote with confidence. Thank you for your patience. Your piece is being crafted with care and will be ready as promised. I appreciate your trust in my work. Simple, honest, no apology for existing. 3 clients responded within an hour, all of them saying the same thing. Take your time. Quality matters. We trust you. I stared at those messages for a long time. These people, strangers who'd never met me, trusted my work more than my own family did. That night, Jake and I started prepping for the cabin trip. As we loaded tools and supplies, he asked casually, "You gonna tell them you're not coming? Or just let them figure it out?" I thought about it. I'll tell them. On my terms. Good man, Jake said, clapping my shoulder. Remember, you don't owe them an explanation. Just a boundary. Christmas Eve arrived with snow falling thick and fast, turning Brooklyn into something quiet and surreal. Jake and I were loading the last bags into his truck when my phone started buzzing relentlessly. Mom calling, then Marcus, then David, then my father. It was 6:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the Whitmore Christmas Eve reception always began. I could picture the scene perfectly. The crystal champagne flutes, the imported appetizers, the designer suits and dresses, and one empty chair where I was supposed to sit, smile, and pretend I didn't know what was coming. My phone vibrated again. Jake glanced over. Want me to throw it in the Hudson? I almost said yes. Instead, I took a slow breath. No, I need to be the one who decides, not them, as if summoned by my words. The phone stopped, then immediately started again. Mom calling. I sighed. If I don't answer, she'll call all night. Then answer, Jake said gently. But don't let her pull you back. In. I swiped to accept, and her voice exploded through the speaker. Where are you? Not Merry Christmas, not Are you okay? Just fury wrapped in 2 words. I kept my voice calm. Merry Christmas, Mom. This is not the time for games, Oliver. Your father and I have been looking everywhere. Grandmother Margaret is asking for you. You need to come home immediately. I'm not coming, I said quietly. A sharp inhale. Excuse me? You heard me. Oliver James Whitmore, she said, dropping her voice into that icy tone she used when demanding obedience. You will get in your car and drive here right now. This behavior is unacceptable. Unacceptable. The word they'd used to describe everything I'd ever done that didn't fit their plan. I stared out at the falling snow, feeling something inside me finally stop trembling and stand firm. No, I said. It was a small word, but it felt like moving a mountain. What did you say? She demanded, voice tight with disbelief. I said no. Mom, I'm not coming. There was a furious rustle on the other end, like she'd stood up suddenly, like she was looking around the room for witnesses to this unthinkable rebellion. Oliver, don't do this. Not tonight. Not when the entire family is... You mean the entire audience? I interrupted. The audience for the little performance you planned? Silence, cold, dangerous, loaded. What performance? She said slowly, her voice dripping with false confusion. I heard everything, I said, my voice steady now, clear. Every word. Outside Dad's study 2 nights ago. The presentation Marcus prepared. The charts David made. The speech Dad rehearsed. Your plan to humiliate me in front of 50 people. The room you cleared out without telling me. The jokes, the laughter. More silence, heavier now, suffocating, so I kept going. The part where you compared my work to macaroni art. That was particularly memorable. I could practically hear her brain scrambling, searching for the right manipulation. Oliver, you misunderstood. No, I cut her off. I finally understood. Her voice shifted, turning frantic around the edges. Oliver, you're being dramatic. We were concerned about your future, trying to help you see reality. Concern doesn't sound like laughter, I said, my voice hardening. Concern doesn't require PowerPoint slides. Concern doesn't involve clearing out someone's room behind their back and calling their life's work pathetic, she exhaled sharply, anger cracking through. You were eavesdropping. That's a violation of... I was walking to my room, I corrected. A room you'd already decided I didn't deserve. Oliver, listen to me very carefully. No, I said again, the word coming easier now. You listen. For the first time in my life, you're going to listen. My voice didn't shake. Not once. I'm not coming home. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until you learn to treat me like an adult, like a son. Like a human being worth basic respect. You have responsibilities. To this family, she shouted, losing her composure. No, I said calmly. I had obligations you invented. I'm done fulfilling them. You're making a terrible mistake, she hissed. Your father will be furious. There will be consequences. Such as? I asked, genuinely curious. Cutting me off financially. I pay my own bills. Taking away my room? You already did. Destroying my reputation? I don't need a reputation in a family that doesn't want me. So you're throwing away Christmas, she said, voice breaking with genuine emotion for the first time, though I couldn't tell if it was grief or rage. No, I whispered. I'm saving it. I could hear muffled voices in the background. My father demanding to know what was happening. Marcus saying something sharp. David trying to manage the situation like a corporate crisis. My mother's voice returned, soaked in bitterness. This conversation is not over. It is for me, I replied. Merry Christmas, Mom, and I hung up. My thumb hovered over the screen. My heart pounding so hard I thought Jake could hear it across the truck. He didn't ask what happened. He just reached over, squeezed my shoulder. You okay? He asked quietly. I nodded, though tears were already sliding down my face. Yeah, I said, voice cracking. For the first time in my life, I told her no. Jake smiled, sad but proud. Then let's go, Oliver. Your real Christmas is waiting. I buckled my seatbelt. He started the engine. The wheels began to roll forward. Behind us, the Whitmore estate glittered with lies and expensive lights. Ahead of us, the road stretched into fresh snow, quiet, open, honest. And for the first time, I wasn't running away from something. I was running toward the life I'd built, the people who chose me, the version of myself I'd been too afraid to become. The drive upstate took 3.5 hours through heavy snow, but it felt like breathing for the first time in 29 years. When Jake finally pulled into the driveway of the cabin, I could only stare. Wood frame walls, warm light glowing from every window, smoke rising from the chimney like a gentle welcome. Nothing polished, nothing performed, just real. Jake grinned. Told you, best place on earth. When I stepped inside, warmth rushed over me, smelling like pine and burning oak and something cooking that actually smelled like home. Then I heard voices. Footsteps, laughter. Sarah, Jake's wife, came out from the kitchen carrying a tray of mugs. Behind her was Tom, another craftsman from the woodworking guild, holding a freshly baked apple pie, and behind him were Daniel and Chris, both carrying bags of groceries and decorations, grinning like conspirators. I blinked, confused. What are you all doing here? Tom shrugged, smiling. Jake sent one text. That was enough. Sarah handed me a mug of mulled cider. You didn't think we'd let you spend Christmas alone after what your family did, right? My chest tightened, but not with pain this time. With something warm and overwhelming and completely unfamiliar. Jake nudged me. See? Some families you choose. We cooked together. Messy, chaotic, completely imperfect. No caterers. No color-coded schedules. No judgment. Just laughter. Bad jokes. Burned edges on the rolls that we ate anyway. And a freedom I'd never experienced during a holiday. At one point, while chopping vegetables, Daniel said casually, You know, Oliver, that desk you made for my office, 3 people have asked for your contact. Your work is incredible, Chris chimed in. My sister won't stop showing off that coffee table. She's convinced it's going to be worth a fortune. Someday, I felt myself smiling. A real smile, unpracticed, unforced. I hadn't realized how rare that had become. After dinner, we gathered around the fireplace. Sarah poured wine. Tom passed around the pie. And Jake brought out a wooden box filled with blank ornaments and paint. "New tradition," he declared. "Everyone makes an ornament representing their year." I hesitated, staring at the blank wooden circle in my hand. Eventually, I painted a bird breaking free from a cage, wings spread wide, flying toward an open sky. Gold wings, deep blue background. No one asked what it meant. They didn't need to. While the fire crackled and popped, my phone buzzed on the table beside me. Jake frowned. "Ignore it if you want." But something told me to look. "Aunt Patricia, I heard what they planned. I'm disgusted by your parents' behavior. Your gift is beautiful, Oliver. I'm so proud of you." My lips parted in surprise. Another buzz. "Cousin Emma, your table made me cry. You're so talented. We had no idea how successful you've become. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner." Another buzz. "Grandmother Margaret, I do not approve of what happened tonight. Call me when you're ready, dear boy. And thank you for the chess table. It's exquisite." I stared at my phone, hands shaking. "They know," I whispered. "They found out what happened." Jake leaned over. "Good. Let the truth burn through. That perfect facade they worked so hard to build." But I wasn't thinking about the facade. I wasn't thinking about revenge or vindication. I was thinking about something else entirely. They believed in me. Not all of them, but enough to matter. People in my family saw my work, saw my worth, saw me as something other than a disappointment, and they'd reached out to say so. A few hours later, when the snow had stopped and the fire had burned low, Tom raised his glass. "To Oliver," he said quietly, "for choosing himself this Christmas." Everyone raised their glasses. I swallowed hard, throat tight with emotion. "Thank you," I managed. "For the first time, I feel like I'm spending Christmas where I actually belong." And in that moment, surrounded by people who saw me, supported me, chose me without conditions or contracts or corporate metrics, I realized something profound. I hadn't lost a family tonight. I had found one. The real one. The one that mattered. 8 weeks after the Christmas that broke me open and rebuilt me stronger. I stood in the doorway of my expanded workshop, holding a cup of coffee and staring at the transformation. What used to be a cramped 2-person space was now a legitimate studio with 4 workbenches, professional equipment, and room for the 2 full-time employees I'd just hired. Sunlight poured through the new industrial windows I'd installed, washing over the polished concrete floors and the design sketches pinned along every wall. I breathed in the scent of fresh lumber and new beginnings, feeling something I'd never quite felt before. Pride, not the hollow, approval-seeking kind I'd chased my whole life. Real pride in something I built myself. My business wasn't a hobby anymore. It was a company. Orders had exploded after the holidays. 3 interior design firms wanted ongoing partnerships. A boutique hotel chain commissioned custom furniture for their entire renovation. And last week, a production company reached out about featuring my work in an upcoming film. I read that email 4 times before it sank in. This was real. This was happening. And I'd done it without a single dollar or connection from the Whitmore name. As I arranged tools on the new workbenches, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Oliver, I was wrong about a lot of things. Can we talk? No pressure. Just when you're ready." I stared at the screen, surprised by the honesty. Something rare in Whitmore DNA. I typed back, "Maybe, when I'm ready." "But thank you." A boundary. Not a wall, a choice. 20 minutes later, another message. Grandmother Margaret, sending photos of the chess table. I showed it at my bridge club and everyone was astonished. "When can you visit? I'd love to see your workshop." I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest. That invitation meant more than she probably knew. Then, almost like the universe testing me, an email from my father appeared in my inbox. I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity won. It was brief, clinical, exactly like him. "Oliver, I've analyzed your business trajectory. While your recent growth is notable, I remain concerned about long-term stability. I'd like to discuss a contingency plan involving a position at the firm as a safety net." I stared at those words for a long moment. No apology, no acknowledgement of what he'd planned. Just another attempt to control. Disguised as concern. For the first time, it didn't hurt. It didn't even anger me. I hit reply and wrote, "Thank you for your concern. I'm confident in what I'm building and I'm doing well. I won't be discussing career changes or contingency plans. I wish you the best. No explanations." No justifications, just a boundary, firm and clear. My mother sent a message that afternoon. Your absence at Christmas caused unnecessary tension and embarrassment. An apology would go a long way toward healing this family. I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. Some messages don't deserve an answer. Some manipulation doesn't deserve engagement. 3 weeks after that, I drove back to Greenwich, accompanied by Jake in a rental truck, to collect the last of my belongings. Rosa greeted me at the door with tears in her eyes and a hug that lasted longer than words. "I'm so glad you came for your things," she whispered. "Your mother tried to donate your grandfather's tools, but I hid them in the basement. I knew they mattered." I hugged her tighter. "Thank you, Rosa, for everything. For seeing me when no one else did." We loaded everything into the truck. My grandfather's woodworking tools, worn smooth from decades of use. Childhood photos, sketchbooks, my first failed projects that taught me more than any success. These weren't reminders of failure. They were proof I'd always been exactly who I was meant to be. As I carried the last box to the truck, my mother appeared on the front steps. We locked eyes across the driveway. She looked older somehow, smaller, less intimidating than the figure who'd haunted my childhood. "Oliver," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I'm here for my things," I replied, keeping my tone even. "That's all." "I see." She paused, and for a moment I thought she might apologize, might acknowledge what happened, might show some crack in the armor. Instead, she said, "You're making this very difficult for everyone." I felt Jake tense beside me, ready to intervene, but I shook my head slightly. This was mine to handle. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "I'm making this clear. There's a difference." I climbed into the truck. Jake started the engine. As we pulled away, I looked back once at the mansion. The perfectly manicured lawn, the expensive cars, the image of success they'd built their entire identity around. It looked exactly the same as always, but I saw it differently now. Not as the home I'd failed to deserve, but as the cage I'd finally escaped. That night, back in my Brooklyn workshop, I placed my grandfather's tools on a custom shelf I'd built specifically for them. Old and new, past and future, side by side, exactly where they belonged. Jake texted me later that evening. "Cabin Christmas next year? Make it a tradition." I smiled, typing back immediately. "Every year. I'll bring the ornaments." I turned off the workshop lights, letting the street lights from outside illuminate the space. This wasn't escape. This wasn't rebellion. This was becoming the person I'd been too, afraid to be while seeking approval from people who never intended to give it. And as I locked the door and headed home through the Brooklyn streets, I understood something I'd spent 29 years trying to learn. Christmas didn't break me. It revealed me. It showed me who my family really was, yes. But more importantly, it showed me who I could become. When I stopped measuring my worth by their impossible standards, I'm never going back to the version of myself who begged to be loved by people who saw love as a reward for obedience. I'm never going back to that chair at their table, silent and small, hoping to earn scraps of approval. I'm never going back to the boy who believed he was the problem. Because that Christmas, standing outside my father's office, hearing the truth they'd hidden behind expensive gifts and holiday cards, I learned the most valuable lesson of my life. Family isn't determined by blood or last names or shared DNA. It's built by choice, by respect, by people who see you as you are and love you anyway. It's measured in late nights, around a fireplace with people who celebrate your success instead of resenting it. It's proven by those who show up when you're breaking and help you rebuild into something stronger. And most importantly, I learned that the opinion that matters most isn't the one from the people who raised you. It's the one from the person you see in the mirror, the one who knows every scar, every failure, every moment you thought about giving up, the one who kept going anyway. 6 months later, I received an envelope in the mail, expensive stationery, Whitmore family crest embossed in gold. Inside was a formal invitation to next year's Christmas celebration. Handwritten note from my mother at the bottom. "We hope you'll reconsider. Family is important." I held it for a long moment, then walked to my workshop and pinned it to my bulletin board, not as a reminder of pain, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. Next to it, I pinned a photo from the cabin Christmas. All of us around the fire, laughing, real smiles, real joy, real family. The contrast was everything. One was performed perfection, demanding and hollow. The other was messy, honest, chosen, and filled with something that actually felt like love. I knew which Christmas I'd be attending next year, and every year after that. Because I finally understood the truth they'd spent my whole life hiding from me. I was never the failure. I was just the only one brave enough to leave.